It's WrestleMania season, which means it's an appropriate time to talk about the guy that basically defines what WrestleMania is all about, the Phenom, The Undertaker. So in today's video, we're gonna look at his WrestleMania matches because we're gonna be ranking every single Undertaker WrestleMania match from worst to best. Because over the last several months, I've been on a journey. I've been watching every single Undertaker WrestleMania match under the sun. I started with his WrestleMania 7 match against Jimmy Superfly Snuka and recently ended this journey by watching his WrestleMania 36 match against AJ Styles. And this entire watch-along journey has all been filmed and cataloged for your viewing pleasures over on Patreon, all 27 episodes. So this should be fun. Now that I've recently finished this series, it's time to make people angry because people always get angry when I do ranking videos. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're gonna fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if you are looking for more than just daily wrestling content, come over to the Patreon where you're gonna find the entire catalog of the Undertaker WrestleMania Rank series alongside the Raw reviews, the SmackDown reviews, all the watch-alongs that we do, the podcast 3 days early, just a whole bunch of content that never gets uploaded here to YouTube. So come check it out, patreon.com/SantiZab, link in the description, link in the pinned comment. Let's get started here. Before we fully dive into this, I wanted to help you understand the brain of Santi because not only did I rank these from number 27 being the worst to number 1 being the best, but I also created these subcategories to help you visualize what I think about different batches of Undertaker WrestleMania matches. So here are the different batches that we have. We have the worst category. This is reserved for the absolute most god-awful Undertaker WrestleMania matches under the sun. These are matches that I would never recommend anybody go watch. These are matches that I'm upset they even exist. Then we have the bad category. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory. These are matches that are sloppy in ring, boring, aren't particularly very creative, and incredibly unmemorable. Then we have the meh category. These are matches that have something to like you could actually watch these matches and maybe enjoy them, even if they're more bad than they are good. Then we have the actually good matches. This is where The Undertaker starts to cook. These are matches that are entertaining from an in-ring perspective, and I would recommend anybody go back and watch. We have the great category. This is where Undertaker starts to carve out his WrestleMania legacy, putting on some of the most memorable matches in WrestleMania history. And then we have the legendary category. These are the matches that aren't just in contention for being some of Undertaker's best WrestleMania matches of all time, but are in contention for just straight up being the best WrestleMania match of all time, period. So let's start with the first batch, the worst category. At number 27, we have a match that unfortunately just hurts my soul. And it hurts my soul because this is a dream match that me and so many other people wanted throughout the years, but unfortunately got a little bit too late, and it involves my favorite wrestler of all time, John Cena versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 34. This thing is a crime against humanity. This thing is an actual travesty. Listen, John Cena versus The Undertaker was a dream match in its own right. We wanted this match to happen specifically at WrestleMania for many years. Unfortunately, the WWE, I felt, was always too scared to actually put these two guys in the ring together. However, once they finally put them together, they were well past their prime. John Cena at this point is already a part-timer, and Undertaker is in his back half of his career, not particularly putting on the best performances. But I feel like the biggest travesty about this match, because I didn't expect it to be very good, was the fact that just WWE didn't even try or seemingly even cared. Because they could have easily put on a 5 to 10 minute match where it was like the greatest hits of both of these guys, John Cena and The Undertaker, trading finishers, maybe doing some stare down a la Hulk Hogan and The Rock to create an atmosphere, but they didn't even do the bare minimum to make you, the fans, believe that this match even mattered. Because all this was just a 2.5 minute squash match where Undertaker got all of the offense and he destroyed John Cena. Undertaker's entrance, no word of a lie, was 7.5 minutes for this, and the match was only 3 minutes. And obviously I'm a little bit upset with me being both an Undertaker fan but also a giant John Cena fan, but like, just try. They did the worst possible thing you could have done with these two. I would have preferred for this to have been a bad match. At least I could have said, hey, you know what, at least they tried and no one was expecting, fireworks from these two anyway. But the squash match that we got was, in my opinion, a slap to the face. I'm not messy. Well, if you look around my room, I might be considered a little bit messy, and when I was a young kid on the pitch, I had the skills of a young Messi, but right now, I'm not messy. And since I'm not messy, that leaves me with the next best available choice of going to go see Messi play for Inter Miami against the Vancouver Whitecaps later this month. And I don't really feel like getting messy with my wallet, so I'm using today's sponsor, SeatGeek, to make sure that I get the absolute best deal on game tickets. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. And there's more than 70,000 events currently listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and so much more. Right now, you can go get tickets to things like WWE shows, NBA, NHL, MLB, and so much more. I personally love using SeatGeek because of their ease of use and how intuitively they sort upcoming events, but most importantly, because of their transparency that allows me to know whether or not I'm getting a good deal here. Because on SeatGeek, each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know that you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every single ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And you know that I came through for all of you guys to get you a discount because you can use code SANTI10 for 10% off your next set of tickets over at SeatGeek. That's 10% off tickets with promo code SANTI10. So make sure to click the link in the description to download the app and use the code, and it will automatically be added to your account so that you could use it later. Thank you again to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get you back to the wrestling shenanigans. At number 26, we have the match that pretty much every single AI generated list that you're going to find on Google is going to say is the worst Undertaker WrestleMania match. That is the match against Giant Gonzalez. And honestly, fair enough. This falls under the worst category as well, because this is a categorically awful, diabolically bad match. The best thing about this match is Undertaker's entrance. It's like one of the cooler entrances that he's had at WrestleMania without it being 10 minutes long, because it's in the daytime with this carriage, with this vulture. Like, it was like awesome. But unfortunately, they put Taker out there with a guy that barely knew how to walk, let alone wrestle, in Giant Gonzalez. This match basically just resulted in a bunch of choking, a bunch of rest holds, a bunch of bear hugs as well. It was just a giant waste of time. The crowd was dead for this. There was no interest from anybody. Like, this is just a bad. And this was a bad match that was unfortunately made even more iconically bad with the finish, which, by the way, I'm not making this up. Giant Gonzalez, who was the dominant force in this match, had to get himself disqualified by knocking the Undertaker out by making him sniff a rag covered in chloroform. I wish I was making that up, but yes, chloroform was the weapon of choice of Giant Gonzalez. The match did end with Taker on top because he eventually did wake up from the chloroform after Giant Gonzalez got disqualified, and then he kicked Giant Gonzalez out of the ring and Taker got to celebrate. But this is a giant blemish in Taker's like WrestleMania run, but also his streak, because he does have a disqualification win in the repertoire. But yeah, this match sucks ass and falls in the worst category alongside John Cena. Now let's go to the bad category. In number 25, we have King Kong Bundy. This is a lot of like what I didn't like about Giant Gonzalez. A lot of rest holds, a lot of chokes, a lot of early Undertaker matches were just full of that. But also, Undertaker didn't get to do some of the cool stuff that he does, like tombstones, because King Kong Bundy was just too damn big, and these guys just had absolutely zero chemistry with one another. It felt like I was watching two guys like trying to wrestle while also trying to march through a bog that was up to their waist. Like, it just seems so slow. And like, I'm okay with big meaty meat fests of matches. Like, I love me some Bronson Reed, and King Kong Bundy can be entertaining, but the combination of King Kong Bundy with another giant dude in The Undertaker was just a match made in hell. At number 24, we have honestly a god-awful match. This was almost in the worst category, but it was maybe to the level of so bad it was entertaining. At the very minimum, this was one of the more memorable Undertaker WrestleMania matches, but for all the wrong reasons. I'm talking about the Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Big Boss Man. Listen, a Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania? Sign me up. Most of the time, that's gonna be awesome. And Undertaker WrestleMania matches at this point were already at the level of legendary. We'd already seen the Hell in a Cell match against Shawn Michaels, the insane one against Mankind, and Big Boss Man was pretty crazy himself. I think a lot of us were expecting some pretty crazy stuff in this. And we did have blood in this match, but we actually had more than blood. We had actual live murder. If you thought that the match between Giant Gonzalez and The Undertaker was a ridiculous finish with the chloroform rag, this is even crazier. Undertaker picks up the victory, but then he proceeds to murder Big Boss Man as the Brood comes down from the rafters and they hang Big Boss Man, like hang him with a noose off of the Hell in a Cell structure as it rises to the sky. It almost felt like WWE was almost entirely banking off the fact that people were going to talk so much about the murder that they would ignore how categorically bad of a match this actually was. And number 23, we have the WrestleMania 22 casket match between The Undertaker and Mark Henry. This was bad. It was slow. It was boring. It actually reminded me very much so of the match against King Kong Bundy because, well, there's not much that these guys can really do to each other to really create the oohs and ahs, and then you add the stipulation of the casket, which pretty much just means that Undertaker's gonna win because he's already on a pretty crazy WrestleMania streak at this point, and he's not gonna lose in an actual casket match, his match stipulation, let alone to Mark Henry. I remember being upset as a kid that this match even existed because I always felt like at WrestleMania 22, it should have been The Undertaker versus Kurt Angle, and good God, that match would have been so incredibly good. And this is also just like a big blemish in this awesome stretch of WrestleMania 20s of just banger Undertaker WrestleMania matches. But yeah, it's slow, it's boring, and the stipulation of having to put somebody in the casket has never been particularly interesting to me. You combine two guys that aren't going to work particularly well together, a short amount of time, very little drama, and a terrible stipulation, and of course, this is a bad match. At number 22, I can kind of forgive this because it's Undertaker's first WrestleMania match, his WrestleMania 7 match against Jimmy Superfly Snuka. There's really not much to this match. It's literally like 5 minutes long. The whole shtick of this match was that Jimmy Superfly Snuka couldn't do anything to keep The Undertaker down because at this point, he's full-blown like dead man with Paul Bearer on the side lifting him up with the urn. And the finish was also botched with Jimmy Superfly Snuka going for this springboard that Taker's supposed to catch him and put him into the tombstone. Taker wasn't able to catch him, so they had to awkwardly then get to the tombstone spot anyway. But this is a very formulaic, vanilla, simple match, but it is Undertaker's first WrestleMania match of all time, so I guess I can kind of forgive it. But like, I definitely wouldn't go back and rewatch this. I certainly wouldn't recommend that you do either, unless you want to see like the history of Taker's streak and where it began. The fact that this is the first match in Undertaker's WrestleMania streak is the only reason this match has any sort of like historical value, because it is a very forgettable WrestleMania match. At number 21, we have yet another boring, slow match, the match against Psycho Sid for the WWF Championship. It was the WrestleMania main event, and this was hard-hitting. This is a better meat-on-meat big man match than we've seen versus, for example, King Kong Bundy or Big Boss Man. So this isn't like horrible. It's one of the better bad Undertaker WrestleMania matches. Where this match really struggles is the fact that because it is the main event of this year's WrestleMania, they gave it main event time, 21 minutes. And these guys, listen, they're not going to make magic in 21 minutes. It is a very, very long and very drawn out. And the fact that there's very little in terms of like, I don't know, some like spice or anything fast paced makes those 21 minutes feel like an eternity. This was also a no disqualification match, but there's very little use of like weaponry and violence, which I really felt could have helped this match actually potentially be good. They actually gave it the perfect stipulation to allow these two giant dudes to put on something interesting, but ultimately they didn't really take advantage of the stipulation other way. But ultimately they didn't take advantage of the stipulation. And by not taking advantage of the stipulation, it really relied on like their in-ring talent, and their chemistry in ring wasn't great. At number 20, we have another match that I can honestly forgive. We have the match against Jake the Snake Roberts. This is one of the better bad Undertaker WrestleMania matches. It was almost like an identical carbon copy of the match against Jimmy Superfly Snuka, with this being Taker's second WrestleMania match, where it was Jake the Snake Roberts trying to keep Taker down, but the urn constantly bringing him back up with Paul Bearer doing his Paul Bearer-y things. There was this weird moment where Jake the Snake Roberts hits the DDT on the Undertaker and doesn't try to pin him, but keeps Taker down for like 30 seconds. So like, bro, why wouldn't you pin him there? Instead, we had to wait for 30 seconds for Paul Bearer to be like, all right, rise, Taker, with the urn. It's like, bro, just pin him. You probably would have just won there. But yeah, pretty simple, pretty formulaic for an early Undertaker match. Not something that I think is very memorable, but it is two legends of the industry. I think for that alone, it might be worth going back to watch it. It's not the most terrible Undertaker match. At number 19, we have another match that does fall under the bad category, and we have The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns. This might be too high for many people. Many people would have this even lower, but I was a little bit more forgiving of this match because there was actually some like pretty cool spots in this. We had a moment where Undertaker gets speared from one announce table and back down through another one. That was pretty sweet. The finishing sequence was actually pretty gnarly with Roman Reigns hitting like 3 spears to finally keep the Undertaker down, but the first 2 getting some like really dramatic pin counts where the Undertaker kicks out. But this is sloppy. There are a lot of botches in this, and more than anything, I feel like it commits the biggest crime in wrestling in that it was just boring. The match was no holds barred, which allowed for some fun stuff to happen with Roman Reigns and Undertaker hitting each other with a chair, the stuff that happened on the outside with the Spanish announce table. Like I said, that stuff was pretty good, but similarly to the Sid stuff, they really did not take advantage of the stipulation very well. And they also relied on like really long Hell's Gates to allow Undertaker to catch his breath. Hell's Gates that were broken up by Roman Reigns reaching the ropes, which makes no sense considering it's no holds barred. But anyways, I digress. There was a really cringe moment where Roman Reigns was not able to pick up the Undertaker. There was a really underwhelmingly awful looking last ride in this. There's just a lot to dislike about this. This was 23 minutes long, and no word of a lie, this felt like 45 minutes. They also did this thing at the end of the match where Taker took like 25 minutes to just stand in the ring and put his hat and trench coat in the ring as if he's retiring, which was what, you know, it was warranted back then when it was happening because, okay, I guess that's Taker's last match, but it wasn't his last match. He would go on to have a whole bunch more matches, which just made that rewatch more painful to just watch Taker spend 25 minutes taking off his damn hat and trench coat. At number 18, we have the last match that I think is like truly bad, that being The Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, the end of the streak. And it's not just bad because I felt like the streak shouldn't have ended there. To be honest, that's kind of subjective whether or not you felt like the streak should have ended. I didn't think it should have ended here, but the match itself was really bad. But I can kind of forgive it because Undertaker was concussed for a huge portion of this match. I think the biggest problem with this match is that if you go back and watch it, the crowd doesn't care. There are F5s, there are tombstones galore in this match, and there are close pinfalls, and at no point is anyone in the crowd standing up. So the crowd doesn't care. Taker is maybe like 10% of his normal self, and I feel like the fact that we were seeing like the worst version of Taker, again, because he was concussed, was a little bit jarring considering we had just watched like 7 straight WrestleManias of him being by far the best performer on the show. So then to all of a sudden see him just fall off a cliff and give a bad performance, again, because of the concussion, was a little bit disheartening. This match will never be remembered because of the in-ring work. The in-ring work is incredibly forgettable, and like I said, it got no pop from the crowd or from me watching at home. This will forever and always be remembered because this is where the streak ended, and I will continue to scream from the mountaintops that it just probably should not have ended here. Now let's go to the meh category. These are matches that have some stuff to like about them, but are still like mostly bad. As you can see, Undertaker doesn't particularly have a Rolodex of like nothing but good WrestleMania matches. He's got a lot of crap in here. At number 17, we have the WrestleMania 20 match, the return of the dead man, The Undertaker versus Kane. This honestly was just a quick showcase of the return of the dead man because Undertaker had been the American badass and he returns as the dead man with Paul Bearer, with the urn. So this really was just a glorified squash match. It's a shame too because a few WrestleMania earlier, Kane and The Undertaker had put on what I thought was an unbelievably good WrestleMania match. So to see this be as short as it was kind of disappointing. But again, seeing the return of the dead man, seeing the return of the iconic gong, whatever it is that you want to call it. He had an awesome WrestleMania dead man entrance. There's stuff to like about the presentation of this match, but the match itself is wholly and entirely forgettable. Number 16 was maybe like the biggest shocker that I had, because I thought that this was going to be amongst the worst WrestleMania matches for The Undertaker. But listen, I enjoyed somehow The Undertaker versus The Big Show and A-Train in a handicap match. This was already a mess to begin with, considering this was supposed to originally be a tag team match involving Nathan Jones and The Undertaker, but reportedly Nathan Jones was so bad in ring that Vince and The Undertaker just made the call to just completely remove him from the match because he got attacked earlier on in the night. So here's the thing, this match could have been awful had they put Nathan Jones in it, but because it doesn't have Nathan Jones, instead we have a very nimble and very athletic Taker doing some really fun wrestling stuff against The Big Show and A-Train, who honestly worked really well with this version of Taker. It was a fast-paced brawl. I thought that this was going to be nothing but chokeholds, wrest holds, but this was just a quick fight, and it kind of worked for me. Again, this isn't going to blow the roof off any building, but I was just pleasantly surprised how not complete, utter garbage this match was. At number 15, we have in the actual watch-alongs, what I said was like, okay, this is maybe the first decent Undertaker match, and that was Undertaker versus Diesel. I feel like this match was everything that they wanted the Undertaker versus Psycho Sid to be, but they actually like did it well. Especially because Diesel at this point is like fairly athletic in his own right. The Undertaker is fairly athletic in his own right, and they actually worked like quite well together. And the other reason why this is better than the Psycho Sid match was that they didn't overstay their welcome. Just a solid 15-minute match. Like anyone can sit through that. It's when you start to get into like the deeper 20 like plus minute matches where like if you're not good, it becomes incredibly noticeable. Now, I don't think that this match was amazing, but the fact that it was only 15 minutes prevented this from getting to like the bad category and falling into the cliff. At number 14, we had a match that I thought was way better than it had any right to be. The American Badass, The Undertaker versus Ric Flair in a no disqualification match. Like, it wasn't amazing, but we got to see some cool wrestling from Ric Flair. We got to see an awesome interference from fellow Four Horsemen and Arn Anderson deliver one of the most beautiful spine busters that I've ever seen. It's bloody, it's violent, we got weapons. Listen, for what it was, based on like the people that were in the ring, like it's an obvious dream match, but the limitations of Ric Flair at this point in his career should have meant that this match should have been much worse than it ultimately ended up being. It was pretty not bad. Now let's move on to the good category, the stuff that makes Undertaker's legacy at WrestleMania what it ultimately is. At number 13, we have a match that I thought was going to score lower, but upon a rewatch, I'm like, this is actually like pretty damn good. That was The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. Like I said, I thought upon rewatching this that I was going to score this much lower because I remember not liking this. But this match was exactly what every Undertaker match after him losing the streak should have just been. A 50-minute showcase of all of the greatest hits of Undertaker's moves against somebody trying to make a name for themselves at WrestleMania. And that's exactly what this match was. These two also had great chemistry in ring with one another. No botches, just a really clean match. And both sold their asses off for each other's big moves. There was also a really awesome like WrestleMania moment, if you want to call it, with Bray Wyatt doing his like Sister Abigail exorcist walk that he does, while at the same time the Undertaker doing his sit-up and them staring at each other. Like, it was fun. Like, the presentation of this match was fun. The entrances were fun, even if it was in the daylight. The match was good by all accounts. There's nothing to dislike about this. This to me is the first like good match in this list. And again, I was pleasantly surprised. I remember when I watched WrestleMania 31 thinking that wasn't a very good match. And this is the first time that I've actually like fully rewatched this match from beginning to end. And like I said, I was pleasantly surprised by it. At number 12, we have another match that I also remember being god-awful, but upon a rewatch, I'm like, shit, man, this was kind of good. That being the Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Shane McMahon. So I remember my initial complaint about this match being that it was way too long, and it's 30 minutes. And when I saw how long this match was, when I went into this rewatch, I was concerned. I also remember like hating this match the first time that I watched it all of those years ago, alongside hating pretty much everything else about WrestleMania 32. I think the biggest complaint ultimately about this match was that the match itself existing was always weird because Shane McMahon was the babyface in this, and Undertaker is just a babyface in general because of his legend status, but he was helping the heels because the story was that if Shane McMahon won, he got to take control of Monday Night Raw and return to the WWE, but then Vince McMahon didn't want to give up that power, so he's just like, well, if you want it, you have to beat The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell. So it kind of left fans confused as to like who to root for here. Because believe it or not, Shane McMahon was like hella over when he returned to the WWE at this stage. But now that I've rewatched it, this match kind of rocks. It's just a big old spot fest, but it works. And the reason why it's so long is because some of the spots are like quite memorable to the point where it makes sense that these guys would lay down for the next 5 minutes before they got up. One of those spots being Shane McMahon literally trying to kill himself and jumping off the top of the Hell in a Cell to try and take out The Undertaker. Taker moves and Shane McMahon just goes clean right through the announce table. Again, from the top of the freaking cell. But we had Taker throwing Shane McMahon through the cell. We had Shane McMahon doing some coast to coast. Like there was just some really cool moments and spots to really enjoy. I went into this with the mindset that I was going to hate this, and I walked out of this rewatch being just happy that I got to rewatch it. This is like pretty good. If you're willing to fast forward, especially through the moments where they're just lying on the ground selling the crazy move that just happened, this really is like a 15-minute spot fest. So if you're willing to fast forward through things, it's probably a better experience that way. At number 11, we have a match that honestly kind of disappointed me. I thought that this was way higher on my list, but upon rewatching it, I was like, this is good at best. There were better Taker matches, that's for sure. That being The Undertaker versus Edge. Don't get me wrong, it's still a good match, which is why it's in the spot that it is, which is why I have it in the good category. I just remember this being way better than it actually was. I think my memory of this was definitely clouded in perhaps maybe some nostalgia. I remembered Edge feeling like he was closer to beating the streak than he actually was, but I never really felt like in this rewatch that Taker's streak was in danger at any point. I really didn't feel that vibe from this match. They had great chemistry with one another. There was a little bit of shenanigans with the Edge heads, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, coming out to interfere in the match to create, you know, one of the spots where you think that Taker is about to lose. But I thought it was fine at best. Now let's go to the great category. At number 10, we have what, when I was doing the watch along, that I said this is the first truly like fantastic Undertaker match. That was Kane versus The Undertaker from WrestleMania 14. This match absolutely bangs. Like both of these guys are in their bag. Their chemistry with one another is just perfect. The brutality of this match is through the roof. This is where Taker starts to pull out like some of like the more insane moves that you remember, like the crazy dive to the outside. But there's some good violence here, some good drama as well. This is, by all accounts, the first like great Undertaker WrestleMania match. This is absolutely worth a rewatch. At number 9, we have a match that I thought was going to be lower on the list than Edge, but upon my rewatch, I thought it was better. That being the WrestleMania 23 match against Batista. I actually felt like Batista had a chance here. I actually felt the drama on this rewatch that I didn't feel during the match against Edge. I just didn't think that these guys were going to be able to work as well with each other as they ultimately ended up doing. It's a good match. It's quick. Like it's not particularly very long. It's like 15 minutes. It's just 15 minutes of like good fast-paced adrenaline hard-hitting wrestling. Like, there's nothing to dislike about this at all. This is a great match. At number 8, you're gonna see this guy here quite a lot. We have the WrestleMania 17 no disqualification match between The Undertaker and Triple H. This might actually be the most violent Undertaker match at WrestleMania, like even including the end of an era match. Like, they really went at each other with a ton of weapons. They went into the stands. There was a crazy like high spot where they fell from what looked like to be like a pretty high riser, like a 10-foot fall. But when I was rewatching this, I feel like the biggest thing that I kept taking away from this was just like how cool both of these guys were. Seeing these guys just have an actual fight, like a street fight in the stands, was a sight to behold. At number 7, this is the first amazing, like great Undertaker WrestleMania match that I myself got to watch like happen live. That being WrestleMania 21's match against the legend killer Randy Orton. At this point, Undertaker has had some good matches and some that I've already put into the great category, but they've been good mostly because of like the brutality and the violence, like Triple H at WrestleMania 17. But this was just straight up graps, man. There's just really great chemistry between these guys. They just put on a great wrestling match. There's some great, like really memorable counters in this match as well. The most famous one, of course, being the Undertaker trying to hit Randy with a chokeslam and Randy countering that chokeslam into an RKO in what I thought was the time that the streak was actually going to end. Honestly, at WrestleMania 22, a year later, I would have preferred to see Randy Orton try and go after the streak one more time, because these two guys were a delight to watch at WrestleMania 21. And upon this rewatch, I am still vindicated that this is one of the best Undertaker WrestleMania matches. At number 6, we have a match that isn't really a match, but my God, was it fantastic. I'm talking about WrestleMania 36's Boneyard match between The Undertaker and AJ Styles. I feel like from an entertainment standpoint, this might be the most entertaining Undertaker WrestleMania match because of what WWE was able to do from a production standpoint. I still think that this is one of the coolest pieces of media that WWE has ever produced. In case you didn't know, this is during the pandemic, so there are no fans in the arena. So WWE, instead of having a regular match between The Undertaker and AJ Styles, they decided to do this pre-recorded Hell's Angels like barnyard brawl. And one of the reasons why this match really stands out is because there's storytelling with actual words in this. We aren't used to this. With Undertaker matches, it's all been about the in-ring, but these guys basically throughout the entirety of the match are talking to each other and telling a story with their words alongside telling a story with the physical brutality of the match. But it's just entertaining and it's so campy as well, and it gave us one of the biggest meme-worthy moments in WWE history with The Undertaker appearing behind AJ Styles when AJ's about to bury The Undertaker alive with a tractor. So yeah, between all of the shit talking between Taker and AJ Styles, the actual like spots within the match, it was just really fun and entertaining. It scores really high for me. At number 5, we have a match that I feel like a lot of people would have higher than I do, so this might create a little bit of controversy, that being the career versus streak match between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. I feel like this is significantly below their first WrestleMania 25 match, and I feel like maybe part of the reason why I'm scoring this as low as I am is the fact that I watched the WrestleMania 25 and 26 match back to back in this watch-along journey, which meant that I was basically directly comparing this to their WrestleMania 25 match, and their WrestleMania 25 match to me is infinitely better than this, especially from an in-ring perspective. I feel like WWE didn't get as creative with this match from an in-ring perspective compared to WrestleMania 25, particularly because they could rely on the drama that was created by the fact that this was career versus streak. And yeah, that definitely adds to a lot of the drama, but maybe upon a rewatch and watching it like after the fact, not having, you know, the drama of the career and streak being involved, maybe that takes away from it. So maybe this would score higher if I was watching it like in the moment, but you know, years later, this definitely has fallen down the ranking for me. And now let's go to the legendary category, the 4 best Undertaker WrestleMania matches. These to me are just like bar none, some of the best like professional wrestling matches that I've ever seen. At number 4, we have the almost often forgotten freaking no holds barred classic between Undertaker and Triple H, specifically the WrestleMania 27 match. This thing is a psychological roller coaster. It is an unbelievably good match. I think that it's leagues better than the WrestleMania 26 match between Shawn and Taker. First of all, they put on an actual clinic in the ring, just having just an amazing wrestling match. But because it's no holds barred, they get real violent with each other. One of the best spots was this beautiful spine buster from the steel steps right through the Spanish announce table. But then we have chairs, sledgehammers come out, and then things get real nasty and brutal in the last 10 minutes. And it just becomes an emotional, psychological torture of not just Undertaker, but the viewer as well, with Triple H nearly just killing the Undertaker, screaming, "Stay down. Why can't you just stay down? This isn't that important. Just lose. I don't want to hurt you anymore." But Taker, the gunslinger that he is, continues to stand up time after time after time, and then Triple H just makes 1% of a mistake, and that is enough for Undertaker to lock in the Hell's Gates. And even the Hell's Gates is dramatic, with Triple H scrambling, trying to find the sledgehammer to hit him, but then he passes out. It's actual cinema. And then the post-match is amazing as well, with Triple H being the one that's actually able to walk out, and Taker had to be carted out. So demonstrating that although Taker won the match, it might have been Triple H that actually won the war. Yeah, this thing absolutely ruled. This is one of my favorite WrestleMania matches. Unfortunately, it's like in one of the worst WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 27. So it's often forgotten, but this thing is an actual perfect gem. At number 3, oh my goodness, was this match ever good? Undertaker versus CM Punk. The only bad thing about this match, and this is nitpicking, is that the drama of Punk beating the streak to me was never there, even when I was watching it live. And that's because in my mind, if Taker was able to survive the streak by beating Shawn Michaels back-to-back and then Triple H back-to-back, no way that they were going to give the win to CM Punk, the guy that WWE seemingly never gave anything good to. But these guys were just, oh my God, in their bag. There is a moment where CM Punk hits this GTS, Undertaker falls back into the ropes, he bounces back and instantly hits the fastest tombstone that I've ever seen. We got CM Punk dropping elbows from the top turnbuckle right through to the Spanish announce table. That was amazing. We have some of the most insane kickouts that I've ever seen, and that's kind of nutty to say considering we just went off of 4 back-to-back WrestleMania matches that also had legendary kickouts. This one had just as many. And just seeing Undertaker work with as good of a worker as CM Punk was at this stage in his career, because CM Punk at this point in his age is like arguably one of the best professional wrestlers on the planet. These guys just straight up made magic. At number 2, we have what is my favorite WrestleMania match of all time, but just because it's my favorite, I can acknowledge that it's not the best. I have Triple H versus The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell, end of an era, with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. This really was the perfect sequel to everything that we had seen in the previous WrestleManias, the 2 Shawn Michaels matches, the previous WrestleMania 27 classic between Triple H and The Undertaker, and then seeing the culmination of that trilogy of matches being paid off here with Shawn as special guest referee was just honestly awe-inducing. It is one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time. I've always said that this is just a good match within a Hell in a Cell, which to me are always the best types of Hell in a Cell, because they didn't really use the verticality of the cell or really even use the cell as a weapon a heck of a whole lot. This just basically felt like a continuation of their WrestleMania 27 classic, just with bigger stakes and more glitz and glamour of having the Hell in a Cell. And of course, we all know about the greatest kick out of all time, the sweet chin music into the pedigree and Undertaker still kicking out was just perfection. And although I know that there's better in-ring matches that have happened at WrestleMania and even for the Undertaker, where this just like maybe takes the crown, is from the storytelling perspective. It's not quite to the levels of like narrative, like base storytelling like it was with the Boneyard match, but it's damn near close. Like, there's a lot of talking in this match. But yeah, this still holds the test of time. This is still a fantastic WrestleMania match, Hell in a Cell match, Undertaker match. This has it all. And at number one, what I still think is the best Undertaker WrestleMania match is just the in-ring classic that was Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. This didn't need anything else. It didn't need any artificial drama like WrestleMania 26 had with Career versus Streak. This was just good off the fact that it was the two best workers in the WWE at the time. And maybe even the two best workers that the WWE has ever had. But this is just like the cleanest wrestling match that I've seen at WrestleMania. These guys just put on like what I think is professional wrestling heaven. I don't think that I can say anything about this match that hasn't already been said. I feel like when you started this video, you probably assumed and already knew that this was going to be number one because it's pretty much universally agreed upon that this is number one. Hell, WWE just did a list of their greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, and they gave this the number one best WrestleMania match of all time. And like, at the very least, it's in conversation of it. Out of all of the matches that I watched in this series, this was like maybe far and away the best in-ring match as well. But yeah, to the surprise of nobody, this is my number one, and that's the list, folks. All right, folks, thank you so much for sticking through with me here. This was what I think is going to end up being a pretty long video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Goodbye. Get out of here.